Hello and welcome to the Corporate Warriors podcast. My name is Fela, and in this episode, we're going to discover together how you can use your intuition in order to advance in your career quicker while staying true to yourself, thereby making it really sustainable in the long term. So, in order to give you a short overview over this episode, we're going to start with a short introduction on why this topic is so important. We're going to talk about the benefits of using your intuition at work, when you use it, giving some ideas and examples when you could apply using your intuition, and then last but not least, how to actually use it. So I'm looking forward to having you all here and getting better at using our intuition at work. In order to start off with the topic, I said we're going to start with why it matters so much to use your intuition at work. And me personally, in my experience, I had my own kind of setbacks based on not using my intuition at work. And I want to dive with you a little bit into that story and explain to you why that was the case. And I think way too often when we're at work, we start to be in this really masculine energy, which means we're only in our head and we're trying to force things through. And there's a huge issue with that because for me personally, for instance, I was in situations in my career where I knew very, very clearly that I have to go, I have to leave, I have to quit because the environment was not for me anymore. But somehow I prefer to listen to my brain, my mind, telling me that it's more secure to stay right now, that I need to first figure out a lot of different exit strategies. What do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? Which led me to actually staying in the situation way too long. And ironically, what happened is it was so against my personality and so against everything that I stood for that I got sick from it. And funnily enough, that's the opposite of security because you need to be able to trust yourself, but also trust your body, your mind to function properly in order to build a successful career. I think we're all agreeing on that. So if you are constantly going against what you truly believe, against who you are as a person, in the long term, you will suffer from it. There will be a backlash from not listening to yourself, which is why for me in my career coaching approach, it's so important to help people achieving their dream career while staying true to themselves. And your intuition is just a great tool in order to understand yourself better and to listen to the early signs. And there's also a reason why. And in order to give it some more promotion, let's say, because it's so unheard of to use intuition in your career, I want to give you a short quote of Mr. Steve Jobs. Definitely somebody who everybody knows, hyper successful. If I think of him, I do think more of male energy and like the let's do it attitude and also forcing things through from time to time than somebody who's very intuitive. But what he said is that intuition is a very powerful thing, more powerful than intellect, in my opinion. So that just in order to open up your minds and to make you at ease with thinking about how you can integrate your intuition better in your workday and ultimately in order to achieve the career success that you desire. Let's start with why it is so important to include your intuition in your career. And first and foremost, as I said before, your intuition is just a really great guide. It's something that we have and can work with in order for the decisions and things that we do to stay true to ourselves. And by doing that, what you'll not get is something like career remorse. Do you know buyer's remorse? Buyer's remorse means if you bought something that was perhaps super overpriced, let's say a Louis Vuitton bag, and you get home and you're like, damn, why did I do that? That's way too much money for a bag. That is buyer's remorse. And then career remorse is something that I just came up with. It basically means you made a decision. Let's say you either did not accept the job offer just because it had not the same benefits than your current job, even though you felt really strong urge to actually do it. And then by taking the wrong decision, you might get career remorse. Or you make the decision to stick somewhere and stay around where you don't really belong, where you cannot grow as much, just for some security reasons, which is like I think the most common reason that people give why they don't pursue their dreams is for security. But I really urge you to reflect on that. Is it really that secure to do something that you're not supposed to do? Do you think in the long term, or in the long term, you'll be happier that way? So just something to think about. And that way, you can use your intuition very, very well in the decision-making process. Because yes, your mind is very analytical, and I want you to still use it. This is not an either-or kind of situation. It's really about both. How can you integrate both? And ideally, the ideal case is that your mind has figured out the different ways for you to succeed, and then you include your intuition into that. There are so many different ways how you can achieve a certain objective, whether it's within a job or within your career or life as a whole. And the intuition can help you to make this decision. Do I go this way or that way? And the mind comes up with many, many different ideas why something might or might not work. But in the end, life doesn't go that way. And it's really important to consider, at least, what does my gut tell me? Next, what is really, really important too is that listening to your intuition also promotes innovation in some way, because you have access not only to your mind, but to this more creative and more natural state of yours. So if you're able to actually switch between the mind state and intuition state, what you can do now is have access to so much more information that is given to you. So let's say, for instance, you work in marketing. If you have a good intuition and a good gut feeling, you might have an easier time thinking in the way your customer thinks, because having a good intuition also means, for instance, in focus group discussions, you have it easier to ask the right questions and see, are the answers sincere? And that way you can literally just do a better job by being more connected to yourself. In addition to that, if you start using that strategically and you're really aware of it and you foster your intuition and your gut feeling, you build confidence. So you do not have to walk around and ask 100 people, do you think that's right? Do you think that's wrong? Because the more you get in tune with yourself, the easier it will be for you to make the right decisions and to actually stand behind them. What is the hardest thing that you can do is stand behind a decision that you didn't want to make. So please consider it. I really here want to just use this space to open yourself, your mind up for using your intuition more, also in your career. And last but not least, especially nowadays where many environments are just very, very fast paced, the intuition can help you to navigate and to adapt to changes way quicker. Because again, you're staying true to yourself. You're in tune with who you really are. And that makes everything just so much easier. So you can be more in that kind of flow state. Whereas when we're in a mind state, we're kind of holding on to that energy. We're like, no, but I need to figure it out, this causal effects, right? If I do this, then that might happen and that might happen. And you come up with those whole branches of possible solutions of what might happen. And that's totally fine. I don't want you to stop that. But by including your intuition into it, you can be way more efficient, because you don't have to go down several rabbit holes that would in the end never work anyways. Okay, so those are some really good reasons why you should actually start using your intuition in the workplace and for your career. Now, second, we wanted to look at when you can actually use it. So trying to make it really, really clear and concise. The one thing we already discussed is to make complex decisions easier and more digestible for you. So this is really important in ambiguous situations or very complex situations where you need that specific guidance, and there's no better guidance than the guide within you. I've literally the other day seen a image on social, and it explained a little bit about the electromagnetic fields. And the heart has a very, very strong electromagnetic field that is radiating out. And that way, all of those sayings come up, like I could feel this person's energy, right? Where does it come from? People all over the world say that, but don't really know where it comes from. And this is also part of listening to that energy, and this energy communicating with your intuition, and you being able to make the decision that is actually the right one for you. It doesn't have to be the right one for anybody else. This is your career, and you should focus on what is the best decision for yourself. Next, it's very helpful in building relationships. And as we all know, relationships are so important for the network effect to work. So with those interpersonal connections, when using your intuition, you can very quickly adapt to the other side. It's a little bit like the example I gave with the focus groups in marketing. So it will be easier for you to understand other people. You can understand easier if they're sincere or not with you because your intuition feels it. I guess we all had the situation once in our lives where we knew that somebody wasn't sincere, but we did not want to believe it. So basically it was against the mind, who did not want to believe it, against the heart, who just knew what's right or wrong. And by using that and listening more to your intuition, you will not be fooled as easily. And the relationships that you build with people that actually want the best for you will be way more prosperous and way more fun. Because there's nothing nicer for human beings than to have a sincere interpersonal connection. Seizing opportunities can also be easier just because you don't need to think during weeks about a certain decision in your career. You can be way more open and literally also attract opportunities into your life. So once that recruiter writes you on LinkedIn and your mind tells you, I've just been here a year, perhaps it's too early, but your intuition is like getting all excited and getting curious, like, oh, I would love to hear what this person has to say. You would be surprised how many people just don't reply, just because they listen to their mind only. And it doesn't mean that you would switch careers straight away, but listening to your intuition and your gut, and then just seizing opportunities. Let the opportunity just be a great discussion with a recruiter. Perhaps that recruiter becomes part of your network. Perhaps this position is not the one that will help you, but this recruiter now knows you and has some great position 2 years from now, when it actually makes so much sense in your career journey as well. You don't know until you try it, and listening to your intuition can help you feel more confident in going your own path and thereby seizing all the different opportunities that your life throws at you. Most people just don't listen and they're not open to the opportunities that are presented. So I want you to be really open that anything that's happening can be used for you if you just decide to use it that way. And last but not least, using your intuition can make you just an amazing leader. Being a good leader includes a lot of soft skills, and I think soft skills that we don't talk a lot about are the more spiritual ones. But we're spiritual beings, so we should not exclude that from our soft skills or from our job or from our career. And using your intuition just will make it so much easier for you to lead a team, to lead people, to help people develop. It's again all coming back. It's not separate parts. It's one whole thing. If you start using your intuition more, your energy will change. You'll be more confident, but probably you'll also be harder to manipulate. And you'll see through people and you'll be able to help people. You'll be better in interviews, trying to figure out who will fit into the team and who will not fit into the team. Those are all things that are super relevant for you to be an amazing leader. And I think there's nothing better than a leader that knows the skills, the hard facts. There's no way around that. But then also has the soft skills and the intuitive and spiritual side to it and uses it. What I've seen very often is that people actually do it, but they wouldn't talk about it. So here in that podcast, I just want to open up the platform for us to talk openly about it, because I don't think it's anything that we need to be ashamed of or that we should hide. It's part of our nature. And in addition to it, we can use it in our own best advantage and the advantage for everybody, because we become more sincere and better leaders. That's just a win-win. So why don't we just start doing it? Last but not least, we need to come more to the action steps, right? What can you do if you feel you're very disconnected from yourself and from your intuition? What is it that you can do right now in order to foster that relationship, this connection with yourself more. And one thing, again, is going inward, right? I know most people don't want to hear it. It can be really frustrating in the beginning when you're so much in this doer, masculine, hustler mindset. It kind of feels like unnatural nearly at some point because we're not taught that in business school. We're not taught that in an MBA. But it's really, really important. So we need to find time in our lives to come back to ourselves, to connect with ourselves, and not just have our radar on the outside, seeing what everybody else is doing, how others do at work, what your boss wants, what your employees want, but also coming back inside and connect with yourself. And as you can imagine, things that are really good in that is just the normal spiritual things like fostering more self-awareness through meditation. It can be guided meditations. It can be, just a meditation app that you use in the evening. Just get used to connecting with yourself. And I know how it is. I've really been somebody who people told me for years that I need to start meditating, and I was always putting it off. I didn't want to hear it. I was like in this doer mode, and it felt like taking a step back is not the thing that I want. Whereas I started doing it when I just couldn't do anything else anymore because I was very close to a potential burnout even. So I finally started to take this seriously. And now that I did, I can just proclaim and tell you, please, start now. Start now so that you have this strength, so that you have this clarity, so that you have this connection to yourself and to your intuition. It will make your life so much easier and more calm and still more successful as well. Now, the next thing that is really relevant for the intuition, again, is reflecting. Become a good reflector. And again, I want to tell you about the workbook, right? This is exactly why I did this. It helps you to create this habit of thinking about the things that have happened and going through it in your mind regularly. It's really about creating the habit of reflecting. And that way you can learn from your mistakes so much quicker than ever before. And you can finally understand the cues of your intuition and be like, I knew that this person wasn't sincere with me. I trusted her anyways. And now that happened. Interesting. I would not have had to go through all that pain if I had listened to my intuition. So these are learnings and these are important steps so that your mind can, let's say, step by step start to agree with you as well on using your intuition. I don't want your mind and your intuition fight against each other, but it should be really more of a symbiosis. So once you reflect on that, you help also yourself and your mind to understand that this is actually worth your while. And then how does it actually go? So the most important part to the end, everybody who stayed until the end will have it way easier afterwards. How do we actually do it? If you feel you're so disconnected from yourself, where do you start? Right? You can do meditation, but you don't straight away get the answer for listening to your intuition. So what you can do is search for a calm place and sit down and go back in time and find a situation where you instinctively knew, yes, your intuition said, yes, do it. Yes. And really go back, close your eyes and go back into this moment. And now feel this feeling. What was it? For some of my clients, it can be this tickling in the heart field. Some people feel it in the gut. Some people feel just this rush of joy through them. And then imagine that you make this feeling stronger and stronger and stronger. The idea is that you can really understand how it feels like when your intuition says yes. And then on the other side, you do the exact same thing with a negative experience sometime in your life. It doesn't have to be in your career because your intuition talks to you always in a similar way. Sometime in your life when you just knew you should not do something, when the answer from your intuition was no. And now also here, make that feeling really, really strong. Make it big. and feel it. Where do you feel it? How does it feel? For some of my clients, again, very different answers. Some people felt pressure on the head. Some people felt pressure here. Another person had a feeling of really cold air or energy running through her body all of a sudden, this like shiver coming over her. And it can be really, really different. Some people feel afraid. They feel their stomach is getting smaller and tightening up. But it's very different from everybody, it's very different from one person to another. So it's really up to you to figure out how your intuition talks to you. And now last but not least, you might have already recognized that the intuition says yes or no. The intuition says not, yes, I think that's a good idea because then we can do this and then because we can do that. That is not intuition. Intuition is yes, no. Causal chains, like if I do this and that's what happens then, that's the mind. That's also how you can easily differentiate between the two of them. So the next time you want to include your intuition specifically into a situation, it might be, we're in a discussion with your boss, very important decision to be made. In the discussion itself, you did not get this connection to yourself. You did not feel, what does my intuition tell me? You just had your mind being very present with you. So when you go back, you can give yourself some time. You can tell your boss, even in urgent situations, just give me an hour to think about it and I'll come back to you. Okay, so now you have this hour. So now you ask a very clear yes, no question. Not a, what if we do this? How could life be if I did that? Those are not questions for the intuition. Yes and no questions. So the causal stuff is for the brain, and that's fine. You think it through. You have all the information. You stop when it's enough. Also really important, so you don't go in circles. When you feel like you start at A again, stop and go inward to talk to yourself, to understand what your intuition is trying to tell you. And then with those information at hand, you make a very informed decision, much more informed decision than you probably ever did before. Many of my clients really benefited from that. I hope that you do too. If you have some specific topics coming up in your life, in your career, and you want some support from somebody else, you want to use some more tools, or you want to really understand yourself better, understand what is holding you back really, then please feel free to reach out to me. The link is down here. I have free introductory meetings so you can see if the energy is right, if you feel like working with me would be good for you. And yeah, I would be happy to hear from you. I would be happy to hear in the comments about if you can use your intuition already, or if that's something new to you, if you're up for testing it. I really, really hope this was helpful, and I'm very glad to see you again next time. Bye.